Hi everybody. Well, I'm back on the road. Left New York after spending about a month there with friends and family, and my first stop, I decided that it's early October. The leaves are changing. In many cases, some of the trees have already lost all their leaves. So I want to get out and enjoy a little bit of nature and the color changing. I'm headed south, so with any luck, I will just keep up with the all the leaves changing colors, so I can extend my fall. But we'll see how that goes. Today, I'm along the Pine Creek Gorge. I think that's what it is. Yep, Pine Creek Gorge. Cheat sheet. It's sometimes called the Grand Canyon of Pennsylvania. Grand Canyon carved out over millennia and a lot of rock. Here it's not so much that as it's the canyon up through the mountains. You can see down the bottom there is Pine Creek. And I'll let you look at that while I talk about this a little. There on either side, on the other side is Leonard Harrison State Park, and I'm on the Colton Point State Park. The this side has primitive camping, that side has more developed sites. So over here, no electric, no water, which is fine. I'm self-contained, but this is named after Henry Colton. He was a lumberman back in the 1800s and surveyed this area, and I can't imagine cutting the timber here to float in the creek down to Williamsport and, sorry, Big Bird, vulture coming, a couple of vultures coming by. But well, I don't know if you can really tell this, but if you look, I mean, look out there, it just drops off. You cut a tree up here, and if it was tall enough, it would be almost standing back vertical with the top being on down the bottom. Obviously they cut this way and fell the trees and roll them down into the creek, but man, I can't imagine in the 1800s with hand tools, you know, axe and two-man saws lumbering down through here, but they did. Everything we see here is at the very least second growth timber. So I'm on what's called the rim trail. I'm gonna walk this, and let's see what other kind of vistas I can get, and I'll fill you in a little more detail about this, how this was formed as we go. So if you're don't necessarily have to come here to camp, if you're in the area, and I'm sure the locals use this nice shelter with a big fireplace in it, and there's picnic tables all around. So, you know, there's the rim trail that I'm on actually has a road that runs along next to part of it, and so I wouldn't drive my bus down here because there's a couple narrow spots, but then again, somehow I got my bus up here, and there's another little picnic shelter right down there. So get an idea, like I was talking about, here's a tree that broke off way up there. So I'm saying this thing snapped off a good 30 feet up, landed here, and it's that angle going down. Oh man. So when Pine Creek first formed, it flowed to the northeast, that more or less that way, until about 20,000 years ago. And during the last glaciation period, when the glaciers got down this far, same ones that pushed the Adirondacks down and formed the giant lake where Lake Ontario is now, it was the Laurentide Glacier, and it came down into this area pushing a lot of debris and so on with it, and that caused a lake to form. As it retreated, it left a lake, and eventually all that meltwater caused the debris dam to wash away, and which sent a flood down through here and reversed the flow of Pine Creek. So now it flows southwest, and all that water running through here really is what carved out this gorge. There's one of the vultures. It's sort of cool to me to be up in the high enough above the gorge to be above the vultures. I'm usually looking up at them. So, and you can't see them, but there's a lot of them up and down through here, scouring that creek bed. One thing about this rim trail, as a comparison to the rim trail when I visited the Grand Canyon in Arizona, is I did that one in late winter, and there was snow and mud, and I walked the road rather than the actual trail. At least this in October is a nice dry trail. So just a comparison. Maybe I should do that one in a warmer temperature sometime. Hey, I'm in Arizona most of the winter. So I hiked down to the waterfall, which in the spring is probably spectacular, but right now it's just a little drizzle over there. But it's pretty down here. And of course, it really goes off that way. But I'm not sure if there's a way to get down there that isn't somewhat dangerous. All right, now I got to hike back up out of this hole. A lot of switchbacks. You get an idea how some of this trail is. That's a drop off. It goes down. I'm not stopping for, until I hit the bottom. So that's why I'm watching where I'm walking. Now back up on the road here. Headed back to my campsite, and I'll show you that at the end. But a little more information about the park. Mr. Colson bought this, or owned the 121 acres to begin with, and he developed this into a public picnic area. Originally it was called the Overlook, and he gave it to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1922. But before that, back in the 1880s, this was heavily timbered, forest, cut down. A lot of the hemlock trees were cut down just to strip the bark off, because they used the hemlock bark for the tannin to tan leather. Matter of fact, the Adirondack Mountains up in New York, where we were a couple weeks ago, a lot of the hemlock up there was cut down for the exact same reason. Here, like I mentioned, they'd roll the logs down into the creek. Williamsport was the lumber capital of the world at one point due to the lumber coming out of here. And eventually they did put a railroad through and used the railroad hauling logs out and timber out of this area up to Buffalo and, you know, onto ships and who knows, wherever. But the last train to come through here was in '88. And 5 years before that, I find it interesting is that the state reintroduced river otter and fishers up in here. And a couple of cool animals, if you ever see them. I've never seen a river otter. I have seen a fisher once. Or maybe twice. Yeah, twice, because the instructor and the course I was with was telling us how rare they were, and then the next day we see another one. But anyway, after 1922, he gave this to the state, and then the Depression came along, and the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, came in and did a lot of work improving this, and a lot of the original shelters and that big picnic area, look, that was definitely CCC type construction. But I don't know, CCC did a lot of stuff, put a lot of men to work, and around the country. I don't know if it would fly nowadays, but our infrastructure could certainly use the input of that kind of manpower. But anyway, it's sort of nice, like walking through. I can't imagine the size of the trees back then compared to what there is here now. These are just babies compared to those. Well, I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to get on the road. I talked to a nice lady at the Welcome Center when I got into Pennsylvania here, and she told me of something that I think is going to be real interesting. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye, YouTube.
Jumped off the wagon and he spread out his hands. Brace yourselves and come for your women. We will do what we please. If this is for your blood, you'll have...
Decided that I needed to get a little bit of nature in before all of the leaves have lost their trees. That's backwards.